Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Chad Morgan, and there's been a lot of confusion recently regarding the remarks made by the studio remaking The Witcher 1 for CD Projekt Red. The primary confusion that I've seen is the belief that CD Projekt themselves is remaking this game. That is not the case. Of the three Witcher video games in active production, only one of them is in production with CD Projekt Red themselves, that being the Witcher 4 sequel to Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt. Their Witcher multiplayer was originally done by Flood Molasses. There were some issues with Flood Molasses, and the Witcher 1 remake is being made by Fool's Theory. Now, these remarks by a developer, the primary developer of the Witcher 1 remake, is being made by the people of Fool's Theory. So this is not CD Projekt themselves who are saying this. I have been very critical of CD Projekt Red in the past, specifically with their push for ESG and a lot of their ideas about the future. So this is not in any way moving blame off CD Projekt Red. They're 100% in agreement, in my opinion, with these comments made by the Fool's Theory developer, but they didn't necessarily say that themselves. So just for accuracy's sake, this is not CD Projekt Red saying this, but they probably agree with it. That's the whole thing with this news, however, is a lot of assumptions are being made, not just the assumption that CD Projekt themselves are making the Witcher 1 remake, but assumptions on what these remarks are referring to. So for reference, these remarks come from a Witcher developer making the Witcher 1 remake at Fool's Theory, and he said they're going to remove the parts of the game that are simply bad, and there's more reference in here removing parts that are simply bad, outdated, or unnecessarily convoluted. Now, I can see where they're coming from. I hate that they call parts of The Witcher 1 simply bad. That is not a great way to market, especially to an established franchise audience. That's terrible marketing, in my opinion. But they could be referring to legitimate things when it comes to The Witcher 1. I'm a massive fan of The Witcher games. I have nearly 2,000 hours in The Witcher 3 alone, and then another good 500 with The Witcher 2. Witcher 1, however, I only have a little bit more than 100 because there are some convoluted, outdated aspects of the game. Now, I don't blame CD Projekt Red, the initial CD Projekt Red, for those issues because it was an old game with a very inexperienced studio with people who had a very low budget, low experience coming to make a PC game. It's a miracle it succeeded as well as it did. So I don't blame any of them. They did the best they could with the resources given to them back when The Witcher 1 came out. But there are issues with it, specifically the combat. The combat is convoluted and messy and aggravating, to say the least. I struggle with that combat because it is so clunky. There are issues with the graphics. There are issues with the fast travel options. There's issues with the dialogue that were later corrected, but initially there were issues with the dialogue. And I think most importantly of all, as a book fan myself, it is the least accurate adaptation of the Witcher novels for a lot of reasons. Initially, it was going to take place during the Witcher novels. Then later on, it was decided to become a sequel to the final Witcher novel chronologically. And that was the right decision, moving it past the series, not remaking the series. I think that was absolutely the correct decision. But they didn't know what they were doing at first, and they changed aspects of the lore. Most importantly, there is a second child with Elder Blood in The Witcher 1, similar to how Ciri has the Elder Blood, and that creates some issues for the overall book franchise, and even later on in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It's better that they just ignore that child, which is what they did. So there are substantial issues with The Witcher 1 when it comes to lore, when it comes to gameplay, when it comes to graphics, and I hope that's what they're referring to here. We have no reason to believe that they aren't, though, besides legitimate speculation and legitimate fear coming out of a modern day studio and a modern day CD Projekt Red, given their DEI ESG push in recent videos. So that's where I want to come from. Everyone that I've seen is assuming that they're talking about simply bad, outdated, unnecessary, convoluted aspects, as in they're going to update it for a modern audience for woke reasons and political reasons, because it was an old video game. There were some aspects that aren't necessarily things you'd find in modern day video game. And if that's what these developers are referring to, I'm 100% against that. I'm with everyone else. Let's call them out. Let's shut them down. Let's berate them with legitimate criticism. But we don't know what they're saying one way or another yet. And there are enough issues with the original Witcher 1 when it comes to actual outdated aspects to throw in some doubt that they're specifically referring to woke elements. The primary aspect of The Witcher 1 that people are latching onto is the card system. When you have relationships with a woman, you get a card with her in a provocative pose. and it was almost like baseball trading cards. It was a weird system, very, very weird system, but it was fun. It was part of the game, and there's nostalgia associated with it, so I don't necessarily think they should change that aspect of it wholly. I get why they would from a non-woke element. It is a weird mechanic. So I wouldn't necessarily blame them if they made that change for the right reasons to make those scenes similar to how the relationship scenes in The Witcher 3 or even The Witcher 2 took place, where it was just acted out, modeled out, and that would be fine to me personally. But there's enough nostalgia for people, and if they change that aspect, the trading card aspect, for political reasons, that's a problem. I will call them out absolutely. If that's what they're referring to with these comments, that's wrong. We should call them out. But right now, Witcher 1 has a lot of legitimate issues with it that make it ripe for a remake. I'm not usually a proponent of remake unless there's a legitimate need for one or a great opportunity to update it to make it accessible to new audiences. And by new audiences, I mean a modern gamer perspective that would struggle with an old PC game. That's what I'm specifically referring to, making a gameplay accessible to people who aren't familiar with stuff like that, like myself. This is the one Witcher project that I hope can be good because I want to replay The Witcher 1 more. I love that game. I want to be able to replay it as much as I do 2 and 3, and I just can't right now with the clunkiness of the gameplay and the combat specifically. So that is my hope. That is my prayer. There's just so much ambiguity that I can't say one way or another, and I think people are leaping to conclusions when they're saying that this is wholly politically motivated and wholly referencing political changes. That is not necessarily the case right now, but we'll have to wait and see. Is there any clarifications that might come in the future? Well, we have to wait until the game itself releases, but as of right now, I don't agree with people jumping to conclusions. There's enough issues, and Witcher 1 can be a great game to remake. But we'll see how the studio that CD Projekt Red entrusted with this remake, Fool's Theory, does with the project. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.